The story of Steven Seagal begins far from the flashing lights of Hollywood, rooted instead in an ordinary childhood shaped by quiet challenges. Born in Lansing and later raised in Fullerton, he was not the image of strength people would later associate with him. As a young boy, he struggled with asthma and physical frailty, obstacles that could have easily limited his confidence. Instead, those struggles became the reason he turned toward martial arts. What started as curiosity soon became discipline, and discipline turned into purpose. Unlike many who follow popular paths, he gravitated toward Aikido, a relatively unknown art in the West at the time. This early decision would shape not only his identity, but also the unique presence he later brought to cinema and global audiences, a journey to Japan and cultural immersion. In his early adulthood, Seagal took a bold step that few Americans attempted during that era. He moved to Japan to deepen his understanding of martial arts. This was not just about training, it was about immersion in a culture that valued discipline, respect, and mastery. Over time, he achieved something remarkable by becoming the first foreigner to operate an Aikido dojo there, earning credibility in a highly traditional environment. His fluency in Japanese and connection to local customs strengthened his reputation as someone who respected the art beyond surface-level learning. This period of his life laid a strong foundation for the image he would later present to the world, a man shaped by Eastern philosophy and physical precision. It also gave him an authenticity that would later help him stand out in a crowded entertainment industry. Breaking into Hollywood with a distinct identity. Seagal's transition into Hollywood was anything but predictable. While many martial artists struggled to find space in films, his entry came through a mix of timing, connections, and a strong personal presence. Training wealthy clients in Los Angeles and working with influential figures eventually opened doors. His debut film, Above the Law, introduced audiences to a different kind of action hero, calm, controlled, and quietly intense. Unlike the loud, explosive personalities dominating the genre, his style relied on fluid movement and minimal dialogue. The success of the film proved that audiences were ready for something new. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about how he fought, blending realism with cinematic storytelling. This debut marked the beginning of a rapid rise that would soon place him among the biggest names in action cinema. The peak years of fame and recognition. The early 1990s became the defining era of Seagal's career, as film after film reinforced his growing popularity. Movies like Under Siege elevated him to mainstream success, placing him alongside established actors and drawing massive audiences worldwide. His appeal lay in contrast. While stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone relied on explosive power, Seagal's presence was quieter but equally commanding. His Aikido-based combat style felt grounded and believable, offering something fresh in an era filled with gun-heavy action scenes. For a time, he seemed unstoppable, with studios eager to cast him and audiences eager to watch. This period cemented his place in pop culture, creating an image of invincibility that would later prove difficult to sustain, building a persona beyond the screen. As his fame grew, so did the image he projected to the world. Seagal began to blur the line between his on-screen roles and his real-life identity, presenting himself as more than just an actor. He spoke about spirituality, Eastern philosophy, and environmental concerns, crafting the persona of a thoughtful warrior rather than a typical celebrity. At one point, he was recognized within Tibetan Buddhism as a reincarnated spiritual figure, a claim that drew both fascination and skepticism. This expansion of identity added depth to his public image, but also introduced complexity. The more layered his persona became, the harder it was for audiences to separate fact from narrative. What once felt intriguing gradually invited scrutiny, especially as expectations began to outpace reality. Challenges in reinvention and industry changes. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the film industry was evolving rapidly. New storytelling styles, advanced technology, and changing audience tastes reshaped action cinema. Films like The Matrix introduced a different kind of hero, stylish, tech-driven, and part of larger narratives. In this shifting landscape, Seagal's traditional lone warrior persona began to feel outdated. While some actors adapted or reinvented themselves, his transition proved more difficult. He moved towards smaller productions and direct-to-video releases, which lacked the scale and impact of his earlier work. This period reflected a broader challenge faced by many stars, staying relevant in an industry that constantly reinvents itself. For Seagal, it marked the beginning of a gradual step away from mainstream success, public image, and growing controversies. As his career slowed, attention began to shift toward his personal life and public image. Over time, various allegations and controversies emerged, changing how audiences and industry insiders viewed him. While not all claims resulted in legal outcomes, the volume and consistency of accusations created lasting reputational challenges. During the rise of movements like #MeToo, more voices came forward, further intensifying public scrutiny. This shift highlighted how quickly public perception can change, especially in an era where accountability and transparency are increasingly emphasized. For Seagal, the impact went beyond headlines. It reshaped the narrative around his career, making it difficult for audiences to separate his work from the controversies surrounding him. A shift toward international and political circles. In later years, Seagal's presence began to shift away from Hollywood toward international platforms, particularly in Russia. His connection with Vladimir Putin brought him into political and cultural discussions far removed from his original career path. He was granted citizenship and even took on a symbolic diplomatic role, positioning himself as a bridge between nations. While some viewed this as reinvention, others saw it as a controversial alignment that distanced him further from American audiences. This phase of his life demonstrated how public figures can transition into entirely different spheres, though not without consequences. It also showed how fame can evolve into influence, even when its original source begins to fade. The personal cost of fame and aging beyond public perception, time itself became a visible factor in Seagal's journey. Aging, combined with years of physical strain, changed his on-screen presence and limited the kind of roles he could perform. His later appearances often reflected this shift, with less physical intensity and more reliance on cinematic techniques. For fans who remembered his early work, this transformation was difficult to ignore. It served as a reminder that even the most powerful public images are tied to human limitations. The combination of career challenges, controversies, and natural aging created a complex picture, one that moved far from the confident figure audiences once admired. A legacy, defined by contrast and complexity. Today, the legacy of Steven Seagal is neither simple nor one-dimensional. His early films remain a significant part of action cinema history, inspiring audiences and introducing Aikido to a wider world. At the same time, his later years reflect the challenges of maintaining relevance, managing public image, and adapting to change. His story is ultimately about contrast, the rise and the fall, the admiration and the criticism, the myth and the reality. Rather than a straightforward tale of success or failure, it stands as a reminder of how fame can evolve over time. In the end, what remains is not just the image he created, but the lessons his journey leaves behind.